You are in the process of creating a risk management plan for your project. This plan will describe how risk management will be structured and performed on the project. Your risk management plan may include A, avoided, transferred, mitigated, and accepted risks. B, risk audits, reserve analysis, and technical performance measurements. C, risk audits, triggers, and inputs to other processes. And D, budgeting, timing, and risk categories. And the correct answer is D, budgeting, timing, and risk categories. Now, some people do get confused with this question. Remember, we are talking about the risk management plan, which is an output of the process called plan risk management. That's the very first process. No risks have been identified over there. The only thing that you do over there is also to find the uh, the different categories of risk which are applicable to it, and we call that RBS, and therefore risk categories part is true. Now, triggers cannot be part of this because triggers are decided for risks after the risks have been identified and once they have been prioritized, right? It's part of your responses. That is way further off in your overall project management, risk management life cycle. Yes, the overall plan would also have budget. It will have some kind of timing that by so and so we should have the risk or these kind of things ready, or basically at least information about the different phases in which the risk management activities have to be conducted. It's an overall plan. But see, when you talk about B, which is risk audit, reserve analysis, this is something that we do in monitor risks much later. Right. And when we talk about A, this is all about responses. So how do our risks, processes work? The very first one is planning. And that's what they're talking about. This is what is contained over there. And then you identify all possible risks. And then you prioritize them using perform qualitative risk analysis. And then you do further analysis on high priority risks called perform quantitative risk analysis. And then you conduct responses. You find out responses for the risks. And then you implement those responses called implement responses. And finally, there's a process to make you become smarter, to understand where you went wrong in risk management. That is called monitor risks. And therefore, this is the correct answer because we are at the very first process of risk management. All right, let's move on to question number 7. While identifying stakeholders, you plan to group project stakeholders based on their level of authority and their active involvement in the project. You can do this by using A, power interest grid, B, power influence grid, C, influence impact grid, and D, salience model. And the correct answer is power influence grid. Have a look. So you plan to group project stakeholders based on their level of authority and their active involvement. Now, when we talk about authority and active involvement, basically authority is taken care of by power, but their involvement is not interest, it is their influence, right? So ability to get others to do things that you wanted to get done, or basically influence in the overall aspects of the project, right? To get it done better or vice versa. Interest is okay, how does it affect me as a stakeholder, right, from this project? So that would be interest. So many people actually try and answer A, but that's not correct. Salience model does not have these concepts for them. It's a Venn diagram with three things, which is urgency, power, and legitimacy, but that's not what is shown here, right? So the correct answer is B. By the way, did you know that there is a book which is completely colored and it's only about the notes for PMP exams? All the notes, tips and tricks that would probably need for acing PMP exam. And that's available in a book called Ninja Notes. Have a look. It's all colored from inside. All right. Where do you find this? Ninja Notes for PMP 2021? Well, let's go to Amazon.com. pass notes. Right? That's it. Read and pass notes. That's my publication. And you have a few other books, and this is the book that I'm talking about. Now, this is available in two different versions. One is Kindle, which is for $9, and the paperback, which is completely colored from inside, is $38. Paperback is now available only for US and few other European and Japanese clients. In India, we have only the Kindle version. If you're from India, you'll just have to go to Amazon.in, and over here you'll have to type the same thing, read and pass notes, and voila, you'll get the same. So you have for $449. All right, let's move on to question number 8. Which of the following are part of an effective team charter? Choose two. A. Shared values. B. Project objectives. C. Resource assignments. And D. Conflict resolution. And the correct answer is A, shared values, and D, conflict resolution. Now, when we talk about team charter, project objectives is not part of team charter. Why do we make a team charter? Team charter is how to get the team to collaborate very well and to be able to work with each other very well. And of course, when they work together, they may have conflicts. So, how to make sure that the conflicts, first of all, do not happen? And if they do, Team charter would also contain details about how to resolve them within the team without involving any other party. And therefore, the two things among all these mentioned here are which are part of team charter. One is shared values towards this project and conflict resolution. Now, resource assignment is part of a process called it's part of a plan or called something known as resource management plan, right? And there's an output which is part of resource management plan, which is called uh, resource assignments. And after that, you'll actually use acquire resources to actually, put that into action. So resource assignment is also not part of team charter. So the two things that are connected to team charter, well, they are A and D. Let's move on to question number 9. You are the project manager of a software company. You need ideas for project and product requirements. Which of the following techniques will you use? A. Flow charting. B. Idea mind mapping. C. Nominal group technique. And D. Brainstorming. And I think this is a easy answer, and the correct answer is brainstorming. Brainstorming is for generation of new ideas, things that you are not aware of, and you need to be in a group setting to actually come out with better ideas, things that you may not have thought of. Now, flow charting has nothing to do with new ideas. It is to find out gaps in the process or basically lay down the entire process which exists, or it could even be a future process, but that is just a documentation process, representation process. Then we talk about B, idea mind mapping. Mind mapping is something that you can use within brainstorming. Now, to be very honest, I use idea and mind mapping for brainstorming quite a bit, but then you would wonder why this is not a question. Well, this is a documentation technique that you use in brainstorming. Basically, this is a representation technique. So when you do the brainstorming, one of the techniques is affinity diagram. One of the representation techniques is idea or mind mapping. So this is a representation technique. It itself does not generate great ideas. Brainstorming generates newer ideas, but this is just one of those supporting or representation techniques to write down all the ideas that you're coming out with. And then, of course, nominal group technique, that has something to do with voting. And therefore, the correct answer for this situation is brainstorming. All right, let's move on to question number 10. You have contracted some work to a vendor and would like to identify successes and failures that warrant recognition in the preparation or administration of other procurement contracts within the performing organization. This can be performed through A. Audits, B. Contract files, C. Contract performance reporting, and D. Lessons learned documentation. And the correct answer is A, audits. Now, when you talk about audits, we are talking about compliances, right? So let's have a look at the question. You have contracted some work to vendor and would like to identify success and failures that warrant recognition in the preparation of administration of other procurement contracts within the performing organization. And of course, this is one of the best achieved through audits. By the way, audit is also a tool and technique of the process called control procurement. That's also that is being done here. Now, contract file is something that is a reference document. Does not help you understand whether some best practices have come out, some things did not work, or the effectiveness of the contract, whether people are in compliance or not, the loopholes in the contract that will come out in audits, not in the just the contract itself, right? So contract performance reporting simply means how is the um, vendor performing vis-a-vis the contract, but it does not help you analyze the contract. So this is very close, but the correct answer still is audits. And then lessons learned documentation. Yes, lesson learned documentation is not only about procurement, it could be about anything that is happening in the project. So this is a much wider thing. But to absolutely to have a specific answer to what is being mentioned here, the answer is audits. And therefore, that's the correct answer.